But where you've seen companies move more or be open to this idea, this concept of thinking more in terms of outputs as an option, what do you think is it that allows those companies to do that? How do you think more companies could kind of be open to that kind of that opportunity?
Yeah, I think it's ultimately aligning with how they get work done internally.
Right.
Yeah. So if and I hate speaking in generalities, but if the history is just, we hire people, we give them a job, and that's and we execute going forward. It's a lot different than when you think about, and certain departments and functions lend themselves to thinking this way, but and certainly IT, but you even think like marketing, for example, where there's a campaign, and so now you're supporting a particular campaign or a branding initiative, et cetera. They're organizing their work around that way. And so, to the extent that companies start organizing around specific objectives, right? As opposed to just a rote carrying forward of processes, that lends itself to it. So I think the best organizations out there are internally organizing work the same way they would expect their external providers to execute work on their statements of work for them.
Yeah. And I think also just triggered a thought in my head really in terms of what you're talking about in terms of the translation of the strategy,
Hmm.
the operational goals, and the actual work outputs that need to happen. Um, if an that's essential to any organization. You know this. When you're leading an organization, being able to communicate that strategy effectively down to all levels of the business and all departments of the business, so they can
Yep.
understand where they fit into that and how what they're doing basically contributes to that. That's strategic thinking, isn't that? That's
That's exactly right. So if I want 20% growth this year, I just say 20% growth and everyone work harder, carry forward, make a couple hires, we're going to do that. That's very different than saying for us to enable 20% growth, we need four key dimensions delivered upon, right? And here's how we're going to organize to ensure that each of those initiatives are executed against so that we can hit the overarching goal. Oh, and by the way, we need external help, we need additional staff support, et cetera. And now because we're organizing our work that way, we can partner where we need that support or expertise, or additional hands in order to be able to do it. So it starts internal and moves external.
Yeah, that's a great way to put it. I hadn't actually really thought about it in connecting it up that way prior to this. So I think that's a really good way to put it. Um, but it's just organizations really being effective, and it does take more effort, doesn't it? Let's face it.
Mhm.
If a uh, an organizational stakeholder needs to get something done, there doesn't need to necessarily be a huge amount of thought in terms of saying get five people in a room doing some work. Where it comes to really defining it and defining what
Yep.
the end goal might be and bringing in the outputs that get you to that point. It's a front loaded effort, undoubtedly, but it is a massive opportunity for better outcomes, quality. And I think also this is an area where technology can also be useful for people. It's the ability to write scopes of work and plan stuff. When you look at the large language models, what you can do on the large language models
Oh, it's
directly,
incredible.
how service providers are utilizing them to create a better user experience. Some of those things that were like that blank page, oh, where do I start problem, that
Yeah.
that, that is a big issue for a lot of companies that has been. That's really not really there anymore. So I think the excuses around you know designing the work in this way being too difficult or too onerous, I feel like they've kind of gone a bit.
Yeah, I hadn't really thought about it, but you're right. That excuse has come off the table because if you need you need to put your own fingerprints on it, undoubtedly, but the framework with the right prompts can be in your inbox in very short order. So that's a new dynamic that a couple of years ago wasn't even available. And you're right, it's front end loaded work, but effort that is well worth the outcome.